Every school has one student the staff quietly recover from after graduation. Ours came back during my final week. It was the final Thursday of the school year. Not the fake version of end of year where students still pretend to work and teachers were still pretending to care. Past that. This was the dead zone afterwards. Reports have been submitted. Classrooms have been stripped. Walls are bare. Teachers drifting through corridors carrying tote bags and half-dead pot plants like survivors leaving a flood zone. By midday, the school already felt abandoned. The English staff room smelt vaguely of instant coffee, sunscreen, whiteboard cleaner, and food slowly expiring in real time. Someone had left the Santa hat hanging off the photocopier 3 days earlier, and nobody had touched it since. 17 years at the same school. And this was how it ended. No speech, no assembly, no emotional send-off. Just me, alone, crouched beside the staff room fridge throwing out abandoned yogurt containers and teacher-labelled Tupperware no one was coming back for. I pulled out a bottle of milk that expired during exam week. Straight into the bin. Then a jar of instant coffee so old the granules had fused into a single brown brick. I tapped it twice against the bench. Solid. Gone. Outside, somewhere down the corridor, I heard lockers slamming. Then laughter. Not loud, not obnoxious, but instantly recognizable. And that was the strange thing about certain students. Time changes the faces, changes the clothes, changes the voice slightly, but never the cadence. I heard her before I saw her. Caitlin. There was a brief moment where I considered leaving before she reached the doorway. Not out of fear, out of frustration. Because even after all these years, some people still arrive like incoming weather. I stayed where I was. A few seconds later, her shadow crossed the frosted glass beside the staff room entrance. Then, "Sir?" I closed the fridge slowly and stood up. She looked older, technically. Mid-20s now. Corporate clothes, adult haircut, office lanyard hanging from one hand. But there are some people where adulthood only changes the packaging. "Hey," she said with a smile. "I heard you were leaving." "Mm-hmm. I just wanted to say thanks. For everything." Of course. There it was. The performance. The sentimental little redemption scene she'd rehearsed in the car park before walking in. I wiped my hands on the tea towel. "Don't thank me." The smile faltered slightly. "What? You don't get to do that." A nervous laugh escaped her. "I was literally just trying to be nice." "No," I said calmly. "You're trying to leave this room feeling better about yourself." Her arms folded instantly. Same reflex, same posture, same Caitlin. Year 9 Caitlin used to do that exact same thing whenever someone challenged her. Fold the arms, tilt the head. Half defensive, half audience aware. "I don't know why you're being like this." I opened the fridge again and removed a swollen yogurt container that looked capable of litigation. Bin. because this is probably the last time I'll ever get to speak honestly to you. That changed the air immediately. Not explosive, not dramatic, just still. I picked up a whiteboard marker from beside the microwave and gave it an instinctive shake. Dead. Tried another. Dead too. You know what your problem always was? She gave another tiny laugh. The kind people use when they realize control is slipping. This should be interesting. You confused disruption with significance. Silence. You walked into rooms and exhausted people, then mistook that exhaustion for influence. I uncapped the marker and dragged it across an old worksheet. Nothing. No ink left. People don't admire your presence, Caitlin. I tossed the marker into the bin. They managed it. Then, after a pause, like asbestos, that one landed. You could actually see it land. Not devastation, recognition. I was a teenager, sir, she said quietly. No, I replied. You were a warning. The corridor outside had gone almost completely silent now. End of year silence. Empty building silence. I opened the freezer compartment. Inside sat a Ziploc bag labelled "Science Brains, do not eat." I shut it immediately. You were the student relief teachers warned each other about. That's not fair. It's completely fair. I finally looked directly at her. You have spent most of your life mistaking attention for respect. Nothing back this time. You think people remember you because you mattered. I shrugged slightly. Mostly they remember you because they were tired afterwards. That one hurt her. Not because it was cruel, but because she already suspected it. I picked up a cracked coffee mug still warm from someone else's tea and turned it slowly in my hands. You know the weird part? She said nothing. Nobody ever told you. I placed the mug carefully beside the sink. Every school has one student the staff quietly recover from after they graduate. I looked back at her. You were ours. For a second, I genuinely thought she might cry. But Caitlin had always been too proud for tears. Instead, she said, "You seriously carried this around for years?" "No," I said calmly. "You carried it around for years. The rest of us just had to absorb it." That ended whatever little farewell script she'd arrived with. No more smiling. No more warmth. No more performance. Just somebody standing in the doorway realizing they may have misunderstood their entire effect on other people. I opened another cupboard and found a Christmas card from last year signed by almost everyone in the faculty. I stared at it for a second before placing it back. You're going to spend a lot of your adult life convincing yourself people were intimidated by you. I closed the cupboard. They weren't. I picked up another dead marker. People avoid things that drain them. Then, after a pause, let me guess, you're going to do a psych degree soon. That got an immediate reaction. Her eyes narrowed slightly. How would you possibly know that? Because people like you always do that. I uncapped the marker. Dead again. You're not doing it to help anyone. I threw it into the bin. You're doing it because deep down you need an explanation for why every room eventually goes cold. That's incredibly arrogant. Yeah, maybe. I bent down and lifted a leaking half-frozen ice pack from the bottom shelf of the freezer. A small stream of water rolled slowly across my wrist. But I was there for 6 years, Caitlin. Silence. I watched entire classrooms relax when you were absent. No comeback after that. Nothing clever. Nothing defensive. Nothing left to perform. Just someone standing very still while hearing something they probably should have heard 10 years earlier. I placed the leaking ice pack in the sink and wiped my hands dry against the tea towel. The room stayed quiet. Not tense anymore, just emptied out. For what it's worth, I said, opening the fridge again. The students who actually change never come back. No response. The ones who grew up properly, the ones that realized what they were like. I picked up another expired container and checked the date. They usually just disappear. I threw the container into the bin. They move on. They're embarrassed. They build an adult life and they leave school behind like normal people. Silence. But you came back. I shut the fridge again. That's how I know you still don't understand what you were. A long pause settled through the staff room. Then eventually, I sighed slightly and looked back down at the shelves. Look, I said, I'd love to keep doing whatever this is. I lifted another container cautiously. But I genuinely need to work out what's worth keeping and what needs to be thrown out. Nothing. I frowned slightly and turned around. The doorway was empty. Caitlin had already gone. I stood there for a moment, listening to the distant sound of lockers slamming somewhere down the corridor. Then I looked back into the fridge. Another expired yogurt. Straight into the bin.